Hi, everyone. Good morning. We are thrilled that you made the trip and you brought a little bit of spring with you, I think. I heard actual birds chirping this morning. I saw part of my lawn this morning, so spring is on its way. My name is Julie Holbrook. I have corresponded with many of you over the last several weeks. I oversee graduate admissions for the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and this is one of my favorite days of the year. So thank you all for making the trip. And don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of my colleagues, and I'll introduce them all in just a second. But before we get started, I just wanted to make a couple quick housekeeping notes. Number one, this session is going to be recorded, so your faces will not appear on the recording because the camera is behind you, but if you ask a question, that will show up in the recording. Number two, the closest restrooms are if you exit the doors to this room, you'll see a hallway sort of directly in front of you. The restrooms are down that hallway. There are also, obviously, lots of restrooms located throughout the building. There's a QR code in your folder that tells you all of the locations of all of the restrooms in the building. But again, don't hesitate to ask. We have this room all day, so you're welcome to leave your coats or your bags or any of your incidentals in this room for the length of the day. You're also welcome to take it with you, but we will have staff around this area all day, so feel free to leave things here if that's easier. So the formal programming in this room ends just after 11 in the morning. Our financial aid manager, Erin Bishop, who I'm not sure, she's in the building. We'll be meeting with students starting at that time. If you are planning to go to Cambridge this afternoon, I encourage you to take advantage of meeting with Erin if you have any questions about your funding package or external fellowships or anything like that. If you're not sure if you're heading to Alston or Cambridge, that's totally fine. We can help you figure that out, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Generally speaking, if the research group that you've been admitted into lives in Cambridge, you'll head to Cambridge, and there's lunch in Cambridge and also office hours and those kinds of things. If you're planning to work in a research group that lives in Alston, you'll likely stay here, but there are no hard and fast rules, so if you're not quite sure where to go, don't hesitate to ask us. But if you do know for sure that you're heading to Cambridge in the afternoon, I would encourage you to check in with Erin Bishop at roughly 11 o'clock this morning if you have questions about financial aid. Otherwise, if you don't get a chance to talk with her today, we can always put you in touch with her later next week. So the shuttles, many of you took shuttles from the various hotels. You'll take the shuttles back to Cambridge if you want to go at any point in the afternoon. They're running on a loop all afternoon. Some of you got dropped off sort of very close to where you checked in, but to get to the shuttles to take you to Cambridge this afternoon, you'll actually want to walk down to the main atrium. So some of you got dropped off there, but those of you who got dropped off closest to this end of the building, you'll be walking down through the building to the main atrium, and the shuttles are sort of parked on a side street. And again, if you're not quite sure where to go, don't hesitate to ask us. They are running on a loop, so you can jump on one at any point. You might have to wait a couple minutes for a couple more students to get on. So give yourself a little bit of time, but you're not going to get stranded in Alston. And everything ends tonight at the faculty club, which is located in Cambridge. So roughly late afternoon, 4:35, everybody who's still in Alston will want to jump on a shuttle and head over to Cambridge. All right, and finally, this is the Science and Engineering Complex. It's a huge building. It has lots of nooks and crannies. There are hallways I still have not discovered. It's a little bit confusing, but if you're not quite sure where to go, there are maps everywhere. But the easiest way to think about it is that the rooms are numbered as though they were on the hands of a clock. So the 1.1 rooms, the 1.2 rooms, the 1.3 rooms, and the 1.4 rooms. So it's sort of broken up into quadrants. And that's true on the second floor, 2.1, 2.2, et cetera, et cetera. There are giant maps on every level. But if you're really turned around, just try to figure out what quadrant you're in, and that will help you get to where you have to go. And I think that is all that I have to say. So we're going to start the recording, and I now have the pleasure of introducing our dean, David Parks. David became the dean about a year and change ago, but has been at SEAS for slightly longer than that. He joined as a member of the computer science faculty in 2001. He founded the Econ CS research group here and was also a founding co-director of the university's data science initiative. He is known for his outstanding teaching. He's been honored as a Harvard College professor and twice voted as one of Harvard College's most favorite professors. He earned his master's in engineering and computer science from Oxford, and then he crossed the pond to earn his PhD in computer and information science from Penn. So without further ado, Dean Parks.
Hey, thank you, Julie. Anybody here from UPenn? Yay, great. Okay, it's lovely to be here with you all this morning. It's also my favorite day of the year. I'm David Parks. I'm the Dean of the John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. It's a mouthful, so you can also call it SEAS if you prefer. Welcome. I declare this officially a snow-free day, and I'll show you a photograph later of what it looks like in the spring and the summer. So on behalf of all our faculty, staff, and students, welcome. We're really glad to have you here today. As Julie said, I'm a computer scientist. I've been at Harvard since 2001, so I think that means it's my 24th year on the faculty, and it's my second year as dean. And let me start by congratulating all of you. You are indeed an elite group. This year's cohort includes 149 PhD admits from a pool of nearly 4,400 applicants. A record number. I'll do the math. 3.3% acceptance rate. And if you're wondering, that's actually more competitive than Harvard College. So you are indeed a very elite group, and we are thrilled that you're all here. Around 100 of you are visiting today. There'll be more of you joining later in the day, we think. So there's not quite all of you in the room at the moment, and you're visiting across 6 different PhD programs in the school. We're really excited to have you join our community, and I also recognize that you have choices that you'll be making as to where to pursue your studies, and I want the time you spend with us today to be helpful in weighing the options. So know that you are here because we think you are right for C's, and we now want to give you the information you need as you can make a well-informed decision about whether Harvard School of Engineering and Applied Sciences is the right place for you. I always felt, and I really strongly believe, that deciding on choice of program is really about personal fit for you. And I really encourage you to ask the questions that you have on your mind during your visit. Make sure, especially, I would say, you spend time talking to PhD students here, and of course the faculty that you expect to work with. So let me spend just a few minutes giving you an overview of the school. I promised Julie I would speak for an hour. Just joking. But I do always like to start by sharing our mission with you. You can read this here on the slide, and I hope many of you will have even noticed this physically chiseled into the wall of the building as you entered. So we like our mission, and we like it enough that we've literally carved it into the wall. And as you can read there, one of our core values is to promote an inclusive and welcoming environment in which every member of the SEAS community can do their best work. We believe in that because we believe that engineering and applied science, which I think about engineering as the translation of science to the benefit of society, we believe that's most successfully done by diverse teams without blind spots. We are a small but vibrant school. We're also within one of the world's best universities. And we think about ourselves as being small but mighty. And I would say that our small scale is, I think, an asset to many of you, because it will mean that you'll really form strong bonds with each other and with members of the community as well, more broadly. There is an unprecedented depth and breadth of opportunities available to you here at the university, and we think about our role as a school as an integrator between the other schools. Your primary advisor will be a SEAS faculty member, but you will also be able to pursue research collaborations with colleagues in other parts of the faculty of arts and sciences, with scholars in Harvard's 12 professional schools, including medicine, public health, business, law, government, design, and so forth. And you can see some of Harvard's 12 shields here. I won't quiz you on which is the shield for which school. I'm not honestly sure I have them all figured out myself, but you can see some of them there. And I also say that being situated within this ecosystem means that you can address scientific questions and societal challenges across a very broad landscape in collaboration with colleagues across multiple disciplines. So an important characteristic, and I don't expect you to be able to read this slide, but an important characteristic of our school is that we don't have traditional departments. We have what we refer to as areas. And you can see the areas just at the top in that little blue segment. We have 7 areas, and these areas are designed to be porous, and they're designed to encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration. So you can see some of our faculty members, hopefully all of our faculty members, and maybe just very slightly out of date. You should be able to see all or most of our faculty members, and then research interests. And you can also see the different topics that our faculty are working on. Within Cs, we have a number of centers, including the Harvard Quantum Initiative, the Harvard China Project on Energy, Economy, and Environment, our Materials Research Science and Engineering Center, MERSEC, the Harvard Grid, which partners with Harvard researchers to bring research from labs into the market, and also a close collaborator of Cs, and in this very building on floor 6, is the Kempner Institute for Natural and Artificial Intelligence. More broadly, there's a vast array of research centers that directly intersect with our work and offer you opportunities to broaden your research interests and expand your network. You can see some of them here on this slide. And then getting to the picture I promised you, this is what it looks like when it's the spring and everything's green and pretty. You may have heard us refer to C's campuses, and in fact, Julie was just talking about how to get around. It's actually interesting. If you look really carefully, and I don't know if my pointer's going to work. It kind of does. But let's see. I think this is where we are right now.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is the Science and Engineering Complex up here. This is the business school. And this is the Charles River. And then, if you come down here, this is Harvard Yard. This is the Science Center here. And then our Cambridge campus is just about 1 block that way past the Science Center. So we really think about this as a contiguous campus. Many of us are both in Alston and Cambridge, and moving between the 2 campuses. My office and group are in Alston, but like most faculty and students, I spend times on both sides, and people get around different ways. I tend to walk, others will bike or scooter, others will take a shuttle. You've seen the building you're in today, and indeed, this is one of the biggest stories at Harvard of the past recent years, not just the building, but the rapid growth of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We're the fastest growing school at the university. 1 in 4 undergraduates take their degrees with our school. And actually, we have more students in total than any other professional school at the university. And the university has demonstrated its very strong commitment to engineering and applied sciences, in part through this building. The university has spent $1 billion on this building. And this is the Science and Engineering Complex, or the SEC. There's another acronym, unfortunately. But this is the most significant new building on Harvard's campus in our generation. And it's in this building where we are today where we also sit across the street from the business school. There's an iLab cluster which offers space for startups coming out of the university. And we're adjacent, you will have seen cranes, I think. We're adjacent to the Enterprise Research Campus, which is a growing part of our ecosystem where there will be science-based industry located. And that's all going to come online beginning next year. So there'll be a new hotel, a conference center, and lots of new science-oriented industry businesses there as well. And we're the anchor of all of this. So should you choose to join us, some of you will work in labs in this building, some of you will work in labs in Cambridge, and those labs are either in Pierce Hall, which is this lovely red brick building here, or adjacent to Pierce Hall. Pierce Hall was built in 1901. An amazing fact about Pierce Hall is the whole project was completed in 15 months. It took, arguably it took more than 12 years to construct this project. So it's remarkable that we were able to complete Pierce that quickly. And it's a beautiful building with crazy facades and ornamentation and a big beech tree out the front. So we have the cheese grater outside this building and the beech tree outside Pierce. So just to give you a sense a little bit more clearly of which parts of the school are in Alston in this building and which parts are in Cambridge, you can see that we have 3 areas that are entirely in Cambridge. We have 4 areas that are in part in Cambridge, in part in Alston. Environmental science and engineering being predominantly in Cambridge. The other 3 areas you see in the middle really being somewhat evenly split between the 2 campuses. And then you can see the areas that are entirely in Alston on the right of the slide. Take a quick look at the map, those of you not familiar with the Boston area. We're over in the middle of the most inner circle over here on the left. Here's where we are. Nope, we're here. Let's see here, right there. This is Western Ave. Nope, I'm wrong, right there. It's hard. Okay, this is Western Ave, and there's where we are, I suppose. But again, here's Harvard Square, here's Central Square, MIT Kendall Square, Longwood Medical Area, all the hospitals that are associated with the university. And then the Innovation District of the city, and the airport is, let me see, right over here as well, I think. So you can see that this is really an incredible, I hope you can kind of sense that there's an incredible concentration of academic research and scientific activity in this city. I remember when I moved here from Penn, I just hadn't anticipated what that would mean and how that would feel. There's literally fascinating seminars and talks and workshops happening all the time, whether at Harvard or at other universities in the area. The Boston area is the global epicenter for life sciences. And I think it's fair to say that we have a larger concentration of science-based research and translation than anywhere else in the world, whether it be robotics, medical devices, health tech, quantum, AI, clean tech, amongst others. So let me close here. Just want to close by saying I do really, really hope that you find your visit informative. And I also really hope that many of you will choose to join our mission-oriented, dynamic community. Make sure you ask questions of people that you meet with, get answers, and make the decision that's best for you. And I do also hope that I'll get to know many of you in the fall. So enjoy the rest of the day. I think I'm going to pass back to John Jarash, our Director of Graduate Education, and Julie Holbrook, our Director of Graduate Admissions. And I want to acknowledge Julie's wonderful work in putting together this day.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to introduce my colleagues right now. This is Erin Bishop, who I mentioned earlier today. She oversees our graduate financial aid office and will be a wonderful resource to you both today and in the future. So don't hesitate to reach out to her. And if you're not sure how to do that, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch. As I mentioned, she's having office hours this morning and then again later this afternoon.
Oh, just this afternoon.
Just this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there will be office. There will be office there.
Was it not working?
Is it working? There we go.
Talk straight into it.
Yeah, there will be office hours in Cambridge as well with Gordon.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And John Jarash, as David just introduced, he is the director of our graduate education programs. He oversees the Office of Academic Programs, which is the suite of offices that support our students in both our undergraduate programs and in our graduate programs.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Like we like to say, Julie gets you in the door, and I hopefully get you successfully out the door.
So we just have a couple quick slides to share with you. For those of you who joined us at the virtual town hall we held earlier this week, these slides will look pretty familiar to you, but I know many of you weren't able to attend that event. So we're going to go through these things very, very quickly because we know that there are lots of other things that you have questions about, and we want to make time for the student panel and the faculty panel, and they are a lot more interesting than we are right now. But you will be able to follow up with us if you have questions about the sort of nitty-gritty that we're going to get into right now. Let's see if I can. Here we go. So as Dean Parks alluded to, there are a lot of acronyms at Harvard. We are SEAS, the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We are part of the larger umbrella of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. That's referred to as FAS. FAS includes both Harvard College, which is the undergraduate arm of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. You all applied to SEAS via the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and all of our students are members of the community of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and so the benefits to our students is that they have the resources both in SEAS and then also in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. With that, I'm going to move quickly on to our PhD degree timeline and hand it over to John.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend very much time on this. It's too detailed than you need right now. Basically, you'll be taking most of your courses in your first couple of years. The second year was when a couple of other big things happen. You'll do your teaching, which is a degree milestone for the PhD. So it's not a funding thing. It's a actual experiential degree milestone that we think is important for you, regardless of your funding. That said, there will also be additional teaching likely for most of you throughout the program, depending on your advisor's funding package for you. So do ask them about that. And in the second year, you'll also, towards the end of the year, take your qualifying exam. And I want to highlight that because that's a difference between our program and a lot of others. We do require more coursework than many other peer programs. That's balanced by the fact that our qualifying exam is, while very serious, is very constrained. So you present a project of your and your advisor's choosing, and your committee asks you questions strictly on the content and context of that project. It's essentially a proposal for your ongoing dissertation. So it's not comprehensive, it's not written, it's very much designed to move you forward just towards the PhD research that will be the bulk of the rest of your time here. Oh, is there more I should say? No, I'm good. Okay. This is most of what I also described. One thing about us is we don't have a series of checkboxes that if you take these exact courses, you're guaranteed to be okay for the degree, because we want your programs to be flexible. So we have a faculty committee called the Committee on Higher Degrees, and every single one of you would have your individual course plan go to that committee. They're trying to make your course plan best support your research program. That's the whole point of all this. So it implies a little bit of vagueness and uncertainty, but it's meant to be flexible and supportive of you individually. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have more important things to cover this morning. A feature of SEAS is that, like many places, you can get the master's degree on the way to the PhD. Unlike many places, you can get the master's degree in a different subject. So let's say you're in applied physics, but you're doing a lot of computer science or applied math type work or coursework. As long as you meet the master's degree requirements of that degree subject, you can get the master's degree in a different subject. And that goes as far as our computational science and engineering master's degree as well, which is not a PhD program within SEAS. You can typically double count a lot of the courses between the PhD and the master's, so it's not like you have to do all the extra master's coursework in addition.
Hi. So this just kind of describes the typical funding model. Some of you might have external fellowships, some of you might have internal fellowships. And again, we can meet and talk about that if you want to talk through anything. But so currently, all of our G years receive $4,083 a month. Our years run July through June, so increases tend to happen every July. When you get here for the first 9 months, you will receive a stipend fellowship to kind of help support you while you're taking a lot of classes and everything. In the spring of your first year, you will declare your primary C's advisor officially, and then they will take on your funding in June of the first year via a research assistantship. Typically in your second year, you will serve as a teaching fellow for 1 or 2 sections. And so your funding will either come from that teaching fellowship or from a research assistantship from your advisor. And then in the later years, you might take on a little additional teaching, but typically it's usually a research assistantship through when you defend your dissertation. And just a couple other notes here. We do also have a dental and transit subsidy that will be paid in kind of a lump sum in September. And also you'll be hearing more about computers. And then just if you do have an external fellowship, we provide a $3,000 bonus in the first year that you're receiving the fellowship.
Can I highlight one thing that
Yeah.
you pointed out, Erin? So we do offer the first year fellowship so that you are not necessarily locked into the faculty member who admitted you and is named on your letter. I'm just going to say it, this is nothing unique to Harvard. Funding is getting tight, very tight, all around the country. So that is the person who is committed to supporting you throughout your time here. And that's a really big commitment on their part. So I advise you to get to know them very well, get to know their students very well, as David advised, because that's the one person who has actually said, I, even in this tight funding environment, have committed to supporting the student through their whole time here. And it's not necessary that, even though we do provide you this fellowship that you can look around when you get here, it's not in any way necessarily the case that any of our other faculty are going to be prepared to take on an unexpected student. So that's just the reality of the current situation, I think, across the country. And I wanted to name that. We already covered teaching. I just want to say that we do have a lot of support for you while you teach, so we're not going to throw you in cold. There is pre-service training and a lot of optional opportunities to develop something like a teaching certificate that you can put on your CV when you finish here, if that's going to help you in your future.
I can take this one. So, just quickly, we get a lot of questions from incoming students about living around Harvard. There are a couple different situations. There are residence halls, which are dorms. Hall bathrooms, single private rooms, but hall bathrooms and a meal plan and those kinds of things. Those are located right next to Pierce Hall, which is the building that David showed, sort of their primary home in Cambridge. So it's very, very convenient to our Cambridge campus. And students, PhD students and master's students from across the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences live in those dorms. So it's a really nice opportunity to meet students from other areas. There are also Harvard University-owned apartments. These are market rate apartments that are proximate to campus, and Harvard essentially acts as the landlord for these units. These offer sort of more appropriate housing for students with families, for example. And then there's just off-campus private apartments. Many of our students live in Somerville, which is the neighborhood right next to Cambridge. I strongly recommend that you take advantage of the current student panel later this morning and ask them about what their recommendations and experiences with living on and around campus are. They know best. And also, the residence hall application is due May 1st. And so if you're interested in living in the residence halls, I would encourage you and implore you even to make sure that you apply for that housing by the May 1st deadline, because that does tend to fill up with students from across the school. And then very quickly, all of this information is listed on the website that we have put together for you for newly admitted graduate students. There are office hours today and then at other times later in the spring, and we can always set something up one-to-one for any of you that have questions and want to talk to a particular staff member about something. The April 15th reply deadline is true for us and probably for most of the schools that you've been admitted to. You'll apply electronically and via the Slate application portal that you have from GSAS. And if you choose C's, and we hope so many of you do, orientation will be scheduled for late August. You'll be expected to be here. There is a series of orientation events that the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences sponsors, and then there is also an orientation specific to C's, where you'll see us all again. And so if you do end up choosing to come to C's, we do ask that you hold that last week in August, not for vacation so much, but for coming here and getting moved in and getting to know us. So before I turn it over to our next set of colleagues, are there any questions about, we've just thrown a lot of information at you. No? Okay. Well then, Paula and Edward. I will let them introduce themselves. These are our wonderful colleagues from the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging, and they're going to give you a quick overview of the different initiatives and priorities that they work with our students and our faculty and our staff on.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Julie, for that introduction. Glad to see some familiar faces from last night. Even though we left, I saw some folks still hanging out, so good to see those connections were strong. Happy to give a quick introduction about our office and the work we do.
So I'll start by saying welcome. There we go. I'll start by saying welcome. We're glad that you're here, and we want to share with you not only about our office, but really we want to be here and available to you as a resource to answer any of those questions that you have on making the right graduate school decision for you. So, the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging is here to support every member of the C's community by creating an inclusive and welcoming environment where everyone can do their best work. So I'm Paula Book. I'm the Assistant Dean for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging.
And in the middle, and I always make this point, we took that photo in like January and I was freezing. But I don't smile that intensely. But I'm Edward Alexander, the Assistant Director for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And to my right or left, your left or whatever, we have Lizette Ortega, who's our Senior Program Manager for Student Development. And so, we support the entire School of Engineering. So I know a lot of you folks will have labs based in Cambridge. While our offices are located in the SEC, we're happy to meet folks where you are, both metaphorically and, physically. And if you have time today, we'd love for you to stop by our office hours. Paula will be in Pierce 110, and Lizette will be in the SEC 1304. So it should all be in the online agenda. So feel free to bring your questions and look forward to having more conversation.
So how do we create this inclusive and welcoming environment that we've been talking about? We do so through a focus on our community and on our work. In terms of our community, we are a multinational community of faculty, staff, students, and researchers who are dedicated to pursuing excellence in teaching, research, and our work. We hold to high standards and pursue quality and integrity in all that we do.
And, in our community, we care about a culture of inclusion and trust. We value each individual and what they bring to the table, right? Your dignity, your perspectives. And we're committed to treating each other ethically in that regard. And I believe that pairs very nicely with our commitment to our work. We want to foster a culture of curiosity and exploration where people bring new ideas and are open to expressing and then preserve and enrich the world we share.
So we recognize that it is these diverse perspectives and talents that really enrich our academic mission, and that is the fuel that drives innovation at C's. And so we're in the mission of training broadly informed leaders who can go out there and innovate in ways that can address the societal challenges that we face today.
Okay, clicker. I apologize. So let me work the room a little bit. I didn't realize we had this. Why am I here? Right? We interact very closely with PhD students. From left to right. One of the ways our offices work is providing programming in conjunction with and for our graduate students. And we'll go through a little bit of a slide where I'll show you some initiatives that were created by graduate students who were once in this room, like yourself as well. One thing that, John was able to lift up in his previous conversation is your sort of teaching appointment. And so one thing our office offers is a inclusive pedagogy training for all, graduate students who will be teaching and other sorts of programs along that line. We have a school-wide committee on DIB at SEAS. So our model is very inclusive for not just staff and faculty, but we want to include the participation of postdocs and graduate students. And we've benefited for years from having that sort of holistic approach. Through our committee, we get ideas on initiatives and how we can move the school forward closer to our mission and values. And then our DIB fellowship. So this is a paid opportunity in which, I hire students from undergraduate all the way up to PhD students to help create initiatives and programs that aim to, again, help us adhere to our missions and values here at SEAS. And just a little bit of, hold on now. I'll see now. Okay, perfect. So this is just a good overview of some programs that, PhD students, graduate students like yourself came to me, whether they were DIB fellows or whether they were just members of the community. And they're like, look, I see a need in the community. I see a way we can make it happen. Can we partner with your office and bring some talented speakers to campus? Can we, have some community building events? I'd love to help, talk and, do some recruitment events as well. So, obviously there's a lot of great things and a lot of great speakers we've been able to bring here. But as you also see through some of the recruitment tables, we've had students who are able to go and talk a little bit about their time at Harvard to other potential students. And so if you take away anything, as a PhD student, obviously, you'll be doing your research, you'll be teaching in classes, but we have an opportunity through our office for you to engage the community and, help make impact.
There are lots of ways to fuel connection. We wanted to share just some of the student organizations that can help you do just that. Note that each of these organizations is open to every member of our community. In addition to that, there are offices within SEAS and across Harvard that are here to support you in fostering belonging. I've touched on just a few, but there are so many other folks here who want to make sure that your experience is welcoming and that you have a sense of belonging and feel connected to the community that we're trying to build.
And with that, we hope we get to see some of you all at office hours today. And again, enjoy your time here as you make a very important decision, and feel free to ask questions.
All right, hi everyone. Quick, got about a 10-minute coffee break, bathroom break. We're going to reconvene here for the student panel at around 10 of 10. So again, you're welcome to leave things here, and there's still coffee and what's left of breakfast out in the atrium.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that all right, perfect. Yeah. It was really good. Thank you. Yeah, I did. I actually I created a one. Yeah, I did.
No, I think we're all done.
I know. Yeah, that's like I was Are you finishing it up now? Or? I just finished. It's like, well, I finished maths a year ago, like last year, and I had to finish physics. So we're working up there. Kind of like that. Yeah. Are you committed? Not yet. I'm still say like 99%. I'm looking here, but
No.
yeah, exactly. Like, I won't wait until the last day of the last yeah, like probably yeah. You don't do it for Young is for electrical engineering. I see. But it's like he does robotics and stuff like that. You don't do it. That's probably yeah. You wanna go? Yeah. You? Yeah. I no problem. I do consider mentoring that. It's like a journey. Yeah. Well. Oh no.
Small but mighty. You gonna stay for the student panel?
Oh, yeah, if I'm allowed.
So after the student panel, we've got the faculty panel, and then everybody sort of scatters. Faculty panel is Madhu, Julia Semikini, and UA. That's right after, this goes from 9:50 to 10:10, so like 10:15. Yeah, like 10:15 to 11, I think. And they do tours.
Cool.
Golden is our tour guide extraordinaire.
Thank you, Julie.
Down. It's always
Sure, yeah, thank you. I think now there's like more just like a lot of like but that was pretty cool. Like so, one of the pros of it is like very like stuff is that like the rate that I practice at is also like oh, I was wondering. So I like a lot of the times like growing up like skiing, watching a lot of kids play hockey. And then sometimes I just like practice and do like practicing myself. Yeah. Right. It actually is. Thank you. But yeah, sometimes he gets like oh, that's kind of oh, so
They're only they still work, yeah. Does anyone want to use it?
actually, yeah. You don't have to.
Wait.
Okay.
One. Well, we're going to get started. So this might be the most interesting part of your morning. We have 5 current PhD students from across seas who are here to provide all kinds of insight and guidance and advice about what they, how they approached graduate school admissions and decision making, and then as graduate students, what their experience has been. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to them. And what I'm going to ask them each to do is just introduce themselves quickly, their name, what G year you're in, so first year, second year, third year, maybe a little bit about your area and what your research is. And then really we're going to open it up to you all to ask questions. And it can be everything from advising to research to housing to yoga studios in Cambridge. No topic is off limits. So without much more, I'm going to start with Aaron.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Hi everyone, I'm Aaron. I'm a G2. I'm in applied math. My advisor is Petros Koumoursakos, and what my research is on is I do turbulence and machine learning. More specifically, turbulence modeling, not with any particular application in mind, but on the machine learning side, I'm doing equivariant neural networks and symmetry-related methods.
Hello. Okay. I'm Audrey. I am a G4 in the Applied Physics department. I work in Vinny Manoharan's group. I study polymer nanocomposites that exhibit interesting light scattering behavior.
Hi everyone, my name is Ate. I'm a 5th year in material science and mechanical engineering in Chigang Suo's group, and I study mechanical properties of degradable polymers.
Good morning. My name is Usha. I'm a 3rd year in computer science, and I work with Hima Lakaraju in the business school on machine learning interpretability.
Hi, my name is Nick. I'm in my 4th year in environmental science and engineering, and I work with Danielle Jacob, and we look for methane emissions with satellites.
Okay, so who's going to be brave and ask the first question? Okay.
How's your experience been so far?
How has your experience been so far? And we can bring the mics up to you all.
Let's have each student, let's have you introduce yourself a little bit. Your name, where you're coming from, your background.
Hi, my name is Subhash. I'm coming from UCST, computer science. But yeah, how has your experience been so far, and what was the biggest factor that made you lean towards Harvard and other schools?
Got the mic. That's a broad question. How was your last 4 years? I guess I'll start with why I leaned towards Harvard. I guess that one's a little bit easier. But I don't know. I applied to, I think, 7 graduate schools, and I talked to all the professors and mainly talked to the students in their groups because, they're going to have the best representation of what your experience in grad school is going to be like. And the students had good things to say about my advisor. I got the impression that I was going to have the relationship with my advisor that I wanted to have, something that was a little more hands-off. I could do a little bit more independent research, but also do it at a very high level and work on exciting projects. And there would be the resources to do that. And that's why I chose it. In terms of experience, I'm pretty happy with that choice. I've really enjoyed how I've been able to focus almost primarily on my research, work a little bit on classes and other things, but I did my undergraduate in chemical engineering, and I have friends who went to chemical engineering programs and spent a lot of time on their classes and their qualification exams and whatnot. And I feel really fortunate to have gotten some useful things out of my classes, but really just spent the last 4 years really focused on my research, which is why I got a PhD, and so happy about that.
I really enjoyed my experience so far. The primary reason why I chose Harvard as opposed to other schools is because I knew that I had other interests outside of STEM, and I knew that I wanted to merge those interests. And so what I like about Harvard is that you can take courses from a variety of schools, not just in Cs. So I took some courses at the Kennedy School related to science, power, and politics. I took a course at the School of Design where we imitated a startup company, and we worked with designers to formulate a technology and actually pitch it. And there was also an opportunity to patent if you had a really cool idea. And I also just really like the city of Boston. So something that I considered outside of graduate school is like, okay, I'm going to be here for the next 5 years. Is this a community that I really see myself in? Like, are there things that I enjoy outside of school? Additionally, I also really liked the advisor that I matched with here. He was just very supportive of all of my interests, research and otherwise. And so I think those are the things that made me lean towards Harvard. And I've had a really, really good experience so far.
I would say my experience has been generally positive. I really like the life I've built for myself here in the Cambridge, Boston, Somerville area. Research has ups and downs, so that's probably like one of the more negative things about my life, but that's like not a very negative thing. It just sometimes it doesn't work. But otherwise, I do really enjoy the community here at Harvard. I enjoy the like, this is not shocking, but the resources available to you as a graduate student at Harvard are like pretty unparalleled. So there's like literally only one machine that I've ever thought I might need for my research that I couldn't access, which is like crazy because I use quite a few machines. So yeah, that's been really like empowering as a researcher. And then like John and the team who like work to like bolster all of the graduate students are also amazing. Like I've never had a moment where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm having this problem, I don't know who to turn to. So like that's been really nice. What was the other question?
Oh, we've got another question over
Oh,
here.
excellent.
Unless somebody wants to add to that. And thanks, Andre.
Hi, my name is Egil. I'm from Oslo, Norway. I was wondering if your research area has kind of shifted during the year, so if it's been kind of consistent from when you started.
I guess. Hello? Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start with that because I feel like I've already done, like I'm in G2, but I feel like I've already like tried out like 5 different projects. I mean, it has its pros and its cons. Like when I came in, like when I started my PhD, I already knew I was making a shift from, in my undergrad, I did computational physics research, and I wanted to change to an application that was a little bit like more, I don't know, I guess I'd say maybe engineering oriented, like something I could see and understand better in like a like everyday familiarity sense. So I already knew I was making a shift, and like I said, I do turbulence modeling. I had never taken a fluids class. I'd never done anything fluid related. So that was already a big shift. But then, so I started doing fluid mechanics. Then I tried out a couple fluid mechanics projects not related to turbulence. And then I eventually got into turbulence. But I guess, I don't know, like, is there a takeaway from all of that? It's, I guess, depending on your group, I guess like one good conversation to like have with your advisor, your potential advisor, is like, you know, how do you go about assigning projects? Like, is it, you know, does your advisor have like certain grants that, you know, he wants you to come in and be a part of and work on those particular projects, or is he going to let you like be a little bit more independent, be a little bit more self-directed? The latter was the case with my advisor. He like intentionally pushes all of us to like try out a bunch of different things, and for me that worked out because now I'm doing something that like I really, really love and want to like continue doing. But it's personal preference, because it is, I will say, it is like kind of like nerve-wracking at first to try out a bunch of different projects and have like a lot of them fail. I don't know. It's personal preference, but it's definitely something to talk to your advisor about.
I'll second some of the things that Aaron said. I think that most research evolves. Like, I don't think that anybody's finished a PhD without like some like large scale like trajectory change. The reasons why that happens are like that varies. But I think that also like one of the main predictors of success in graduate school is probably the ability to cope with change and then like navigate yourself through it, because like the grad school is a really interesting time because you're like transitioning from like a student mentality to like a like self-driven research mentality, and so you need to be able to like navigate those changes, and like that's much easier said than done, and like that is a growing experience. But yeah, I think that research pivoting is a great skill. And then if you don't want to go into academia, you could sell that skill too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would second what's already been said. The project that I came in wanting to do was completely different than what I'm working on now. Just because my advisor's interests changed a little bit, and also just the field is also really evolving. So the kinds of questions that you ask evolve with that, I would say.
Thank you. I have a question about the housing. So for the first year, I was wondering, what did you do? Like if you went to an apartment, a residency hall, what's your experience and what do you recommend, at least for the first year?
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Jack and incoming for the computer science PhD.
Yeah, I can start. So I lived in the dorms my first year. So there's two types of graduate and student housing at Harvard. One of them is the dorms, which are located near the law school in Cambridge. And then there's also apartment-style housing, which is based through a lottery. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think everybody is guaranteed a spot in the dorms their first year if they want. Is that correct?
Yeah, Julie would know better.
Oh, okay.
I believe you're guaranteed if you apply by the deadline.
Okay. Yes. They have a decent number. It's likely that you would get it if you wanted. But the dorms are like interesting. You get singles, and there's a kitchen at the end of the hall and communal bathrooms at the end of the hall. So it's very like undergrad style housing, but it's super affordable and a great way to make friends and also not stress about trying to find housing while you're still making a decision about where you want to go.
And they're all single rooms.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great way to make friends is the biggest thing that I would say. But obviously you like give up some independence, such as not having your own bathroom. My second year, I moved out into an apartment in Alston with a friend from outside of Harvard. Yeah.
I moved here with my wife, so we got an apartment in Brighton, so it's the wrong side of the river, but it's cheaper. I think our first year, our studio was like $1,650 a month, and now studios in Brighton are up to like $1,800, and it's like $2,000 for a one bedroom, but it's affordable with roommates, if you have that. So, and I love living there. It's great.
So I'm a resident advisor in the graduate dorms. I actually lived there all 5 years of my PhD, just because I really, really loved the sense of community that the dorms provide. And you get the opportunity to meet people from different schools. So they house people in the School of Design, in the Kennedy School, in other programs in GSAS as well. So I think the dorms are a really great launching point. You can live there for your first year, meet people from a bunch of different programs, and then find people to move out with if you don't already know people in the area.
One thing probably worth mentioning about that is if you stay in the dorms your first year, you have to be on the meal plan at the dining hall, and I think that's like a pretty important a really nice way to meet friends and talk to people, because you're always at the same place at the same times, and it's a context where you're specifically there sitting down and eating lunch and talking to people and not working. So that was probably that's how I met my friend group, and I think that's how a lot of people met their friend groups as well.
One over here.
Hi, my name is Viva, and I'm here for bioengineering. And I was wondering, how is the work-life balance here, and what sort of resources does Harvard and Boston provide for you to kind of commit to the life side of the work-life balance?
So work-life balance will vary pretty significantly group to group. That's definitely something worth asking graduate students who have been in that group, groups that you're interested in for an extended period of time. There are people who put in a lot of hours, and then there are groups that have just by the nature of the work more flexibility. I'm sure coming from bio, that or I don't know if you do computational or experimental work, but experimental biology generally takes a lot of time, right? So that you might just end up having to put more hours into the lab. Another high level graduate school success piece of advice for me is that you have to learn how to set your own boundaries and what that ideal work-life balance looks like for you, because your PhD will take as much time as you give it. It is kind of a black hole. So yeah, you have to think about what do I want and what's going to make me happy and what's going to let me do the best work. So for me, I really need the 2 days of the weekend to shut my brain off, because otherwise I just get fried and stressed. So I do that. And then the city of Boston has everything you could really want to do. So I'm really love doing outdoor activities, so running and biking, and even in the winter you can do a ton of that. And then if you want to do theater or choral music or just about anything, it's an amazing place to be, because there's a lot of young people, and there's also a lot of people who are going through the exploratory process of finding what their interests are. So that's a nice fertile ground to make friends.
Yeah, I would second that. Setting boundaries is really important. To answer your question about the resources, Harvard does have an academic resource center where you can take, they offer workshops on how to navigate work-life balance. Also, Harvard University Health Services has some mental health support groups as well, specifically how to cope with stress in graduate school and other challenges that you might face. So there are a good number of academic resources that you can also tap into when you're trying to figure that out.
And do any of you take advantage of the wider graduate school's student center or activity clubs?
I do. I'm really involved in GSAS. So for 2 years, I was involved in their science policy group because I was really thinking about alternative careers. And I thought that was a safe way to explore what that would look like before fully committing to that. I'm also really involved in the GSAS residence life community. So I plan a lot of events there. And it's just also a really great way to meet people outside of your program and just to think about something else other than your PhD. So I find that I come back really refreshed.
I just wanted to speak really quickly on the work-life balance part, which is I have one friend who says grad school is the following phrase: you work on Saturdays, but every day is a Saturday. So there's that type of mentality. And then I have another friend who leaves her laptop here at the end of every day, and it's truly just a 9 to 5 that she's not working any of the rest of the time. And so I feel it's super up to you, but it seems generally people here have a decent amount of life, at least.
More of the same, but I work 9 to 5. I worked a lot more when I was in my undergrad. I think I'm a lot more relaxed now than I found my undergraduate experience. I think getting a PhD is a little more existential, though. The work feels more personal, but in a good way.
More questions?
Hi, I'm David. I'm doing applied math. What's a piece of advice that you would give to yourself if you were sitting here?
I'm sure you've heard this many times already, but I think the most valuable thing you can do right now is talk to the graduate students that would be in the group that you would be in, because they'll tell you what your life will be like, and they'll tell you the truth.
This is perhaps a personal to my situation piece of advice, but one thing I wish I could tell my first year grad student self is write everything down. Have a document where you put all of your thoughts about all of your research in that document, because odds are at some point in your future, your future self will be oh, I thought about that thing one time. Maybe I read one paper that was related to it. And so the amount of time that I have spent going back to things that I've already devoted time in the past to, just invest in good organizational skills early on, and it will pay off significantly.
That's definitely worth seconding that. I feel personally I can't retain information a month after I learn it. If I take a course I mean, it's gone the next semester. So this year, like I started like writing like everything down, and it's paid off like 10x, and just, you know, what I'm able to go back and like catch myself up on. So definitely that's a good point. The other one I would make is like one of the biggest things that like I've learned so far is like, when I was first like reading papers and everything, I was like, this seems like wild that, you know, all these good ideas come out, like all these like good results. It just seems like these other labs just constantly produce like fantastic research, and like everything just works. But then you actually get in a lab and you realize that a lot of stuff doesn't work, and you never see what's going on behind the scenes. And so the earlier you realize that, I think you're a little bit more comfortable with like taking risks and realizing that it's okay to fail. Some things aren't going to work out, but in my experience, like I think that you need to do that, so that then the more that happens, you learn better like how to evaluate projects, and, you know, how to direct your time, how to direct your focus, how to see like what's next. And I think like the most important way or one of the easiest ways that can come is just like jumping in, doing something, and then letting it fail sometimes.
Oh, we got a couple more over here.
Hi, my name is Anvay. I'm coming for the bioengineering program. I have a question about like general expectations across the board for graduation. Do you feel the bar is higher as you're here, and as compared to like other schools or other programs? And how has that kind of been affecting your pace of research while you're here?
To me, I definitely don't feel that the bar is higher. So the requirements that I know of are that we have to take 10 classes, but it's a little loose in that a couple of those can be research, and you can also bring some in from your master's if you have a master's. And then we have the qualifying exam, which I think is relatively relaxed here. It's mainly just like a presentation on your research. Most of the time you know the people on your committee, and you kind of just like chat with them about what you're working on. It's not very adversarial at all, unless you get like a really mean professor. But and then basically it's like the next 3 to 4 years, computer science is maybe a little bit different than the other fields, but the next 3 to 4 years you just work on your research, and then at the end you're like, oh, I need to get a job now. Whenever you get the job, you tell your advisor, hey, I want to leave, bye. and then you like staple all your work together into a thesis, and that's that. Maybe that was a loose way of saying what happens, but I think I've never seen someone that wanted to graduate and struggled to do it. I've only ever heard of times when people were like, oh, maybe I want to stay around longer, but my advisor's like, you need to move on now. And then they get it together. But yeah, I would say there's never, I don't know if that answered your question. I think it's not too bad.
Anyone else want to speak to that? I have a additional point, but go ahead if anyone else does.
I second. The qualifying exam structure here is more lax than at other schools, and in fact some other schools like are known to have a like non-zero qualifying exam failure rate. And look into the structure of the qualifying exam. Some of them have like a written component. That's the first major hurdle of your PhD, and actually once you clear that hurdle, then you kind of just like cruise until you have determined that you've done what you needed to do, and then you ask your committee for permission. But look into the qualifying exams. And the only time I've ever seen somebody like struggle to graduate was when there was like a very serious breakdown in communication between them and their advisor, which like is not common, but it can happen. But in that case, like they knew that was going to be very difficult or that they were going to encounter that difficulty. Like that was not a surprise, but they did graduate. And they do have a job now, and they're much happier.
Thanks, Usha and Audrey, and thanks for the question, because I wanted to say this earlier, but we didn't have time. One of the things I really like about C's is that every single student who comes here, we want you to successfully complete the program, and we will help you to do that. We are not aiming to weed out anybody with the qual exam or any of the other requirements. So it's not like some other places where you can count on some fraction of the class being weeded out at some point. So we really, once you're here, we do want you to finish successfully.
Hi, I'm Theo. I'm interested in computer science, and I was wondering, amongst yourselves and people that you know and your friends, what types of things do people do in the summers in terms of research or industry internships, and how easy is it to find interesting things to do?
I have a quick answer for that. In terms of doing industry internships, it usually will depend on your funding structure. So like this summer, I thought about trying to pursue an industry internship. However, I'm funded through contracts with industrial partners. So that means that my time is, previously paid for. So I can't do an internship. But that's also something that if you look longer term, you can plan for. Past self just didn't do that. Yeah, I mean, in some sense, I do get the industry interaction, but yeah, funding structure, that is the main determinant. And then also, some PIs might have a slight bias against allowing industry internships, but I think that most of the time, if you're I really want to do this, they will respect that decision.
Yeah, I think it varies person to person quite a bit. I know some people who have interned every single summer, the summer before grad school, first year, second year, third year. I know some people who just didn't care. You get paid if you do research here over the summer, so it's not a bad situation. Obviously, you can make a lot more in industry, but generally it's a lot more work as well. So yeah, I'll be interning this summer.
Probably depends on field, but at least in my field, it's really not common to do an internship in industry. But that's nice because the summer is a really nice time to actually get some research done. There's not a lot of people around. There's not a lot of distractions. You can just put your head down and do some work.
Yeah, one more thing is the summers are, if the timing works out, it's usually a good time to do longer conferences or workshops, that kind of thing. I mean, I've only had one summer here, but I started off, I spent a month in Sweden just at KTH University, and that was great. And that was just a month-long workshop. And then this summer, I have a fellowship with the Department of Energy, so I'll be at the Sandia National Laboratory. That's not a workshop, but that's just another option. I don't know, just some options to be aware of.
How are we for time, Julie?
About 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, so we have another question here.
Hi again. My question is, every professor has a different advising style, and since you have been in the program for a couple of years now, how has that been? Do you wish it was did you wish it was more hands-on or hands-off, or has it been good overall? Yeah, that's...
My advisor is very hands-off, and I picked that on purpose. We probably meet every 6 months. We could probably meet every week if I wanted to, but I really don't want that. I just want to do research and then talk to my advisor when I think I have something interesting to share. We email much more frequently than that, but that's one of the main reasons I chose here.
I really like my advisor. He is as hands-on as you want him to be. I also have a co-advisor, and I think that adds a little something different because one of my advisors is very experimental and one is a little more theoretical. So I do get both sides of the coin when it comes to answering my research question. But my advisor also intentionally doesn't have that many students. So he can devote as much time as he wants to for each of the students that he has. So I think maybe that's something that you should ask is when you're going into meeting different advisors, what's their style, how big is their group, how much time do they typically devote to each of their students, and find whether that's something you like or not.
I think, yeah, you said that advisors very differently. I think when I came to graduate school, I had this idea that I wanted to have regular check-ins with my advisor. I past me potentially didn't know exactly what she wanted, or like I didn't know what that would look like in practice because I'd never been to grad school before. So I think that the best thing that you can do to like set reasonable expectations for your advising relationship is to know that it is in fact a relationship, and it is like between two human beings. So like sometimes like professors are kind of like mystified. They are very human. Like my advisor, like sometimes he's in a bad mood, sometimes he's in a great mood, and he's like making jokes. Like it really depends. And so like there are oscillations, and like sometimes I really like meeting with him once a week, or like sometimes he's busy for a month. I don't know. So like it just so long as you don't feel afraid of your advisor, and like if you need something, you can ask them for it. I think that's like the baseline, because yeah, it is an interpersonal relationship. Like if you can communicate when it needs to happen, then like the bar will get moved forward.
Yeah, I think, sorry, this also comes back to your question about advice. I think that one of the biggest things that grad students need to learn how to do is how to up-manage their advisors. I think it's something that it's like not intuitive, because obviously we're students and there are advisors, but they can't read our minds and know what we want or what we need. And, you know, it really varies so much student to student. And so it's really important that you make your expectations and needs really clear. You tell them how often you want to meet. You structure your meetings in a way that's most helpful to you. And these are like skills that you need no matter where you go.
We've got just under 5 minutes, so I'm going to, all right, we'll take one more question over here, and then I'm going to ask you all for some closing thoughts.
Hi there. I'm Max. I'm here for computer science. And I was wondering if you entered the PhD with any misconceptions, or possibly what was the most unexpected or surprising aspect of completing the PhD?
I guess I can talk. I loved taking classes in undergrad, and I thought that I would love taking classes in grad school, but it's just totally changed. Now I'm like, oh, I just want to work on my research, and I don't want to have to go sit with all of these undergrads, or like do a P-set in the middle of the night, or go take an exam. And I think that was so surprising to me, because obviously I came to grad school because I love to learn, but somehow classes became less of the learning part to me than research did.
I thought when people said that graduate school was going to be hard, they meant like intellectually hard. If you've gotten to this point, you have the ability to overcome basically any intellectual challenge that's put in front of you. The hardest part, I think, is the like psychological, emotional part, this like existential crisis that Nick was talking about, and then like the transition from being a student to being a self-managed person. Like there's just a lot of like stops and starts, and like having to like, you know, propel you, like you have to propel yourself every single day, and like that sometimes is difficult. So like I think that's what really makes grad school hard, and I didn't know that going in.
Yeah, kind of like a similar point is like I was just very surprised at how quickly things can change, like in terms of like your own interests. And sometimes it's like it's just taking a class or reading a paper, and things just like constantly evolve. I mean, with all of my friends, it's like we all came in with like some conception, some idea of what we wanted to work on, and it's just seeing the path that everybody went down to get where they're working on now. Like I would imagine if you asked anybody, like, could you have seen yourself like working on this like 2 years ago, like you would be surprised how many people said like not at all, like I would never have like even conceived it almost. I mean, that's at least how it was for me.
All right, well, that was actually a perfect last question. Thank you, Max. So any closing thoughts, and you don't have to have any because we've covered a lot of ground today. I will just say I've heard some of our students say that they didn't have the benefit of an in-person open house because when they were admitted, it was during the pandemic, and so we did all of this on Zoom, which was fine, but it's much, much nicer for all of you to be here and use this opportunity to talk to the students and to talk to the faculty and get to know the place a little bit and, you know, get a sense of what it feels like. So I would encourage you all to do that. I think the students have said several times, talk to the students in the groups that you're exploring. Every advisor is different. Every research group vibe is different. And part of the benefit of being here in person today is to try to get a better feel for all of that. So really take that opportunity today to do that. And I'm going to spring you all. Thank you very, very much. We have a faculty panel starting in about 2 or 3 minutes, but feel free to take a stretch break or run to the restroom, and we'll see you back here in 2 or 3 minutes. And thank you all. Please join us for lunch in the atrium later this afternoon after the faculty panel. Thank you all.
I know we didn't get to everybody's questions, but there will be grad students, current grad students at the lunch and various other times today. So please ask them.
You'll need them for your good job. No, you're right.
And like you can do like what
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna
and that you decided to do it, right? It's not like a paper you have to open and do like already the and that was like where are you going to work? Yeah, neuroscience.
Well, I think we'll get started.
All right, Julie's just going to go collect people who are still milling outside. All right, welcome back, everybody. And this is, a parallel version of what you just experienced with the current students. We have three of, I'll say, my favorite faculty on our panel. But this is similarly, we're hoping to get your questions for them, and we're hoping to get their candid answers for you. So we're, give you the true lay of the land of how things work in C's. I'm not going to give all the fancy titles that our distinguished faculty very deservedly have, but we tend to be a little more casual here than in a lot of the rest of Harvard. So I'll just say we have Professor Yue Liu, who is labeled as electrical engineering, but I thought you were applied math. But as David Park said this morning, our degree subjects are very, very porous, so it's almost all our faculty have some cross-affiliation. We've got Julia Semengini from Applied Physics, and we've got Madhu Sudan from Computer Science. So I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourselves more.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yue Liu. I'm with Applied Mathematics and Electrical Engineering, and my research is high-dimensional statistics, estimation learning, and I have a lot of collaborations with our colleagues in the stat department and the math department. Welcome, and I'm here to answer any question that you might have.
Okay, my name is Julia. I am an assistant professor, so I just started a couple of years ago as a faculty here. I'm in applied physics, and my research is focused on the development of quantum computers. So I have an experimental group where we're using neutral atoms to try and use their quantum properties to store information and manipulate it in interesting ways. Welcome, and I'm happy to answer any questions as candidly as I can.
Great. And I'm Madhusudan. I'm a computer science faculty. I work in theoretical aspects of computing. And my particular interests are in communication. So how can you make communication more reliable and while being on a theoretically sound framework? My work tends to be mathematical. So my closest interactions are typically with mathematics departments folks. Maybe here, maybe at MIT, and so on. So, and again, happy to answer questions.
Okay, we'll open it up. I'll be running. Oh, right here.
Hi, my name is Viva, and I'm here for the bioengineering department. And I was wondering, from a professor's perspective, how do you recommend a student come and talk to you if your advising style is not exactly meeting their advising needs, and how to kind of bridge that gap?
Okay. So this is a question for you. Assuming I'm your advisor, you're asking me this question. I think it's always very good to have open channels. You should have open channels before you get admitted, before you make your decision, and make sure that your styles are compatible to the extent that you can gauge them. But of course, you cannot, in a 1-hour meeting, a 15-minute meeting, or anything, figure out exactly what people's expectations are going to be and how they're going to, and they may not know all about you. So over time, throughout the thing, you should keep your communication channel open. I always recommend sort of starting at the beginning of a meeting, tell their advisor what the agenda should be. I'd like to talk about these things, which are specific technical things, but also I have these other things that I want to talk about. If you have those, bring it up early, and then I think everything should in principle be solved by communication.
I want to just add one program note. So in addition to your individual advisor and people like me and my colleague Mary Catherine in our academic office, we have faculty who take on the role of what's called Director of Graduate Studies, one for each of our PhD degree subjects. Actually, Madhu Sudan and Yue Liu are two of our Directors of Graduate Studies. So they, for example, are a resource completely separate from any student in their program's advisor for those students to go to with exactly this sort of question and issue.
Hi, my name is Subhash. My question is, as a for a new student, how do you guide them in a sense, like do you tend to give them problems to work on when they come in, or do you tell them a high-level idea and have them figure it out on their own, or how do you go about your advising overall?
Maybe I can say something. I learned this through mistakes. So when I first joined, I had two brilliant PhD students, B1, and I just told them to work on two directions, and I'm very excited about, but myself had no concrete ideas yet how to tackle that problem, which is not something that I should do. Actually, I think the optimal thing to me is to, in addition to your coursework, to encourage you to participate in an existing project headed by a senior PhD student or postdoc in the first year, so that you can contribute to the project. You see how things are going, and then along the way you learn the tools of the trade and the techniques and how we write the paper. Or I would encourage you to sign up for a 299R course. That's a supervised research course with me, and we will be working on some low-stake research problems. And I already know part of the answer, and there's no immediate pressure to compete with other groups.
If I can just add something, I think it depends a lot on the type of research. In my group, for example, we have this massive experimental effort, so it's not that every student has their own project. There's a lot that is common among many students. But I think what I like to do, again, I have 2 years of experience, so I'm not, maybe some of my questions will change over the years of my answers. But what I've done so far is when the students come, I tell them what's the general idea of our group and what we're trying to do. But also I keep these conversations open about what are your ideas, what would you like to do, within this bigger picture, and we discuss together. Some of those ideas might be too out there and so too impossible to do in the near term, and so we try to scale them down. But I think it's the beautiful thing about this advisor-advisee relationship is that I have ideas, you have ideas. Sometimes your ideas might be even much better than mine, and we work together to find a good project. So I think that conversation, as you were saying before, like this communication should be as open as possible so that we can actually develop things together.
Great. I don't have anything to add, so unless you have a follow-up question, I think we can move on.
Hello, I'm Kenny. I'm interested in material science and mechanical engineering here. I was just curious, the Harvard has this interesting structure with academic advisor your first year, who most of the time becomes your research advisor after that. And so for you three, what was some criteria, what was your thought process going into selecting students that you thought would be a good fit for you as an academic advisor / research advisor?
You meant the criterion at the admission stage, or the criterion after G1, end of G1?
If you could talk about both, that would be great.
I was going to ask the second one if you didn't get to it.
Yeah. So admission stage, I would, because the nature of my research, I would be looking at students who are interested in my areas of research, and they are well prepared to do this type of research. And also, ideally, also want to see there's a personality match. If you are really curious about these kind of problems that I work on. Yeah. For the yeah. So I think maybe John, you can answer that for the what happens in the first year. Yeah.
I'd like to hear from you all. What do you look for in a new graduate student? What do you try to provide for a new graduate student? What do you look for from them, and how do you communicate what you look for from them? Is that a good question?
Okay. All right. So a couple of things. So when we are at the admissions stage and we're making decisions, in general, so firstly, I think one word of warning for different people in different areas. Some of you may be in areas which are so specialized that there's one person at Harvard who could mentor you. Okay, if you are in one of those areas, then you should sort of be aware of this and make sure that you have a good binding relationship. So the person that you're coming in as your first year advisor is going to be your long-term advisor, almost certainly in that case. There are other cases where there's slightly broader groups of people who are able to work with you, and then these programs might set up rotations. In computer science, it's less formal than a rotation, but in principle, we do encourage people to go talk to other folks. It's very important for us, I think, and for you to be broad. So the more people that you can talk to in your first year, the better, and you should definitely approach different faculty members. You may not work with them in the future, and that may not be the agenda of the meeting, but you should at least know what kind of work they do, what kind of work you might be doing if you happen to switch to them, and at the same time make sure that your advisors, depending on how strong your initial binding is, make sure that that relationship is going well. What do I look for when I'm looking for a student? When some student comes to me in their first year and say they want to work with me, I would really, at this stage, the first year has already gone by, the portion where we had the time to vet the student and decide if they were to be admitted has gone by. So we tend to have a slightly higher bar at this stage, or at least I do. And I would really look at them kind of carefully and make sure that they are really good fits for me, not a good fit for a broad set of people.
Sorry, I have three grad students, so I'm thinking about the limited experience that I have. But I think in general, again, it's you really want to work together. So I think you're really looking for someone who is excited about the research that you're doing, and you see, what he mentioned before about the personality match is actually super important in the sense that you need to see that you're able to work together, and sometimes this needs to be worked on a little bit. It's not immediate, but you want to see that this can be a working relationship for a few years. So that's necessary for me and for the student to have a good experience in their PhD and in my research. So I think to me those are really the two things that I look for: someone who's excited about that project and can actually work on it, and someone who wants to work with me and I want to work with. I think those are the two simple things I look for.
I want to echo one thing about that. I'm always impressed at how many times a student will come to somebody in the academic office saying, I'm having difficulty communicating with my advisor in this way or the other way. And we suggest to them that they bring this up with their advisor, and they do, and the advisor listens, and they work it out. And then they communicate better. It actually happens quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with my students, I try a lot to say everything can be, discussed. So there tends to be this feeling that you cannot say certain things. Most often you really can without any bad consequences. We want to hear because it makes the relationship better and the work together more efficient.
Hi, I'm Alexandra, incoming in computer science, and I was going to ask not just what makes a successful new member of the group, but what makes a successful graduate student of you. If you think about your alumni or whatever, what makes a really successful PhD student can be super individual, but in your group.
Started one of those.
I think so far what stands out for me in the students I have is you're very successful when you take your project very seriously, and so you try to become, I think during your PhD you want to become the best at something. You have a project, you really want to be worldwide the expert on that thing. But at the same time, I think something that really helps in that success is I see my students that are very collaborative. They talk to other students in other groups. They talk to other PIs. They're really looking broadly at what happens around them. That really makes you not only an expert in your field, but someone who understands the bigger picture of research within the context of what you're working on, but also a little bit broadly. I have a student who, in the past was doing, again, I do quantum physics. He was doing biology when he was an undergrad, and so now he's really trying to find out like applications of our quantum computer in biology. And to me, that is a very interesting thing. They might seem two very separate fields, but trying to look for all these connections, I think, is really important. You don't want to be too closed off into a very tiny detail.
So maybe I'll sort of follow up on this. So for me, it's very, there are many formulas for success, and there are different kinds of graduate students who are successful, extremely successful in their own ways and their styles. So there's definitely no homogeneity here. But one thing that I've found very rewarding is when the student, genuinely gets invested in the community around them. They talk to other people, and the conversations are not motivated purely by how can I make my research better, but just how can I learn more, and how can I maybe give you some feedback while you're working on some problems, and maybe just provide a sounding board. These kinds of interactions really make for a very improve the entire output of the community, and inevitably it turns out that the person who's doing the most to help others ends up helping themselves the most also.
So as Madhu said, I fully agree. There's no single recipe for being a very successful PhD student. But in terms of research, for me, I would be most happy if my students, towards the end of their PhD, they are much stronger in their own area of research than me, so they know more. And I don't want my students just to be extension of my bandwidth. I want them to be experts in their own areas.
Hi, I'm Richard. I'm a prospective student for electrical engineering. I had a question about when you see students getting stuck on research projects and finding little direction to go forward and tried many things, is there any strategies you have to help them get unstuck, or is this not a common problem?
I don't know your field. You're in the theoretical side of EE or the...
More theoretical.
More theoretical, yeah. So this is my area. So it depends on the problem. Maybe the problem is too hard. So then there are different ways. You can either consider special cases, you can consider variations of the problem, make additional assumptions, or so there are different ways. Yeah, but then you don't need to be fully focused on this problem. Sometime if you decide and after talking with your advisor, you agree that this problem is just too hard, and maybe it's going to take much longer than the time you have, then we should also switch to a different problem.
Yeah, so I would say the same thing, that actually, so I'm also in a very theoretical area, and in our case, the idea that you will be getting stuck is probably the most likely outcome, and by a factor of maybe 5 more likely than actually making success. So we are very trained to this idea of what happens when you're stuck or when your student is stuck. We just move problems in our case. We just pick a new problem, learn, and you might say, oh, I wasted so much time on this, and I wasted so much time on this, and you wasted so much time on that. No, you did not. You learn, you learn, you learn, and one of these days you'll be successful.
I don't have a lot to add. When we're stuck in experiments, it's usually because the data are not what you want them to be, which is always a great thing. There's something in front of you that is more than what you were thinking about. There are a lot of different, and there typically is not the problem of the students, it's the problem of the group again. So it's kind of a different situation as what you have in many theoretical groups. But there are many ways to approach that. I think but similarly to what they said, the approach is different depending on the kind of situation that you're in front of. Again, I think in these cases you try to talk to as many people as possible, because there might be someone around you who has a little intuition, and then sometimes you just keep those data there and keep staring at them, but in the meantime do something else, and maybe something will come out at some point.
Hey there, my name is Franklin. I applied to the Math Sci Mechie program. I had a question. How do students enter co-advising relationships? And furthermore, do grad students get to join projects done in collaboration even with other schools in Boston?
I personally see a lot of this. They can be, I mean, at least in my area, what I see is it's either collaborations between a theory and experimental group where you want to have joint projects, and so the student gets to be co-advised, which I think is a beautiful experience, honestly, because you get to see two sides of a problem. You get to see how two different professors approach that problem from different points of view. I've seen that, for example, between Harvard and MIT quite often. So I honestly think that one of the beautiful things at Harvard that I've noticed is that there's an openness and like you can actually do pretty much everything. I mean, you need to ask and figure out if things are allowed within the context of the school and so on. But I've seen a lot of different types of collaborations, co-advising and so on. So I think it's something that here is really very much encouraged and allowed. I don't know if there are any restrictions on that, but at least in my experience, there is a lot of that within Harvard, but also within schools at Harvard, but also within different universities in the area.
Yeah, I want to, the way I think of it is, if you have a collaboration going and you've got like 1 foot in one place and 1 foot in another place, we want one of your feet to be within our school.
So I'd like to sort of amplify that. There's different things that you're looking for from your mentors. You want help with the kinds of, you want to learn from them, you want to help on your projects that you're working with them. And certainly in this case, for these kinds of help, it's certainly good to have multiple advisors and so on. But all that said, this should be an agreement between you and your current advisor and the new person, not just you go out, decide one day that I want to adopt a new advisor, and that wouldn't be a good idea. The second thing is there's also the funding question, and this is something that you need to deal with explicitly with your advisors. Who's going to fund you? This, within Harvard, this is probably kind of relatively seamless in the sense if they have funding, they can do something. If you happen to have collaborators outside of Harvard, then the funding channels, etc., may be more complicated. So definitely be intentional about this, be explicit about this in your communication. Make sure that you're not abandoning your source of funding and turning to somebody for advice and then realize that, oh, but that also cuts off my source of funding.
Hi, my name is Matthias. I'm interested in robotics and machine learning for health. My question is, how much constraint does your student having a co-supervisor from a different field place on the research direction and the venues in which you publish?
My understanding is this is area specific and group specific. It depends on your advisor, academic advisor, or if you're G2, your current research advisor. In my group, I have a lot of collaboration with people in the statistics and mathematics department, and then it's very natural to have collaboration and co-supervising. So I would just say you want to keep your advisor in the loop.
Getting your steps in, Julie.
Hi, my name is Anvay. I'm in bioengineering here. One of the questions I have is about faculty's goals. Obviously, like, you also have your own goals. Younger faculties are, looking at tenure, and sometimes grad students say that the pressure of tenure is kind of like trickling down to their grad students. So what should a grad student's approach be to supporting your goals as faculty members here?
Being the untenured here, I'm going to share my approach to that. I mean, so as much as I can, I try to shield my students from my own anxiety. I don't think it needs to fall on them. I have my goals, as you say, and I need to do what I have to get there. But of course, me getting to those goals also depends on the work of my students. So there is a connection there that you need to be mindful of. like the way I see it right now is that there is a lot of pressure. I mean, I want to achieve certain goals to get tenure, but also my students, you know, they want to achieve certain goals to finish their PhD and to have a successful PhD. So as much as possible, I try to keep those in harmony, as if I can say that, meaning we both need the experiment to be successful in some sense. But I mean, you need to navigate that wisely. And as you were saying before, you know, whatever you're doing, there is not a failure if you're learning something. So you need to keep that in mind. You know, I might have certain goals that I would like to achieve during my tenure track. I might not get there, but, you know, if we have learned something, if we have achieved something in the sense that, you know, maybe we didn't get to that specific experiment that I wanted to do, but in the meantime, we've discovered something new, or, you know, I think that is good for me, it's good for my student, and, you know, I think there is a lot of commonality in the things that I want to achieve for myself and I want my students to achieve for their PhD. So these typically go together, and yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's... I do see, actually my students are very mindful of that, so sometimes they're like, what do you want us to do before you get your tenure review? And I'm like, don't worry about that. You know, I'm going to worry about that, but you guys should not have that in the back of your mind. You know, that's on me, you know, to set goals and set a schedule. Yeah, I don't know.
Hi, I'm David. I'm doing applied math, and my question is about once your graduate students graduate, do they end up mostly in academia or do they go into industry? And if they're in industry, are they doing research, particularly if the research is mostly on the theoretical side? Yeah.
So for my own group, I have students who are in academia, postdocs in academia. And there are students on Wall Street, and there are also students in the industry and Microsoft. Two of my former students are at Microsoft. So I think it just totally depends on the personality and what type of career path you want to pursue. Yeah, and I will be supportive of that.
Same here. I think most of my students, well, maybe many more of my students went into academia. That basically depends on the type of work that you're doing during your research and also the area that you're in. Some areas, the more theoretical areas, tend to feed either other academic institutions or academic style research labs in industry, and that's predominantly what happened with my case. But I'm also noticing increasingly that there is greater and broader demand for people with theoretical skills in non-research wings of industry nowadays. So, and that's also affecting my students.
Hi, my name is Chinji, and I'm an incoming student to applied math. So my question may be a little broad. So I'm wondering, how do you envision the strengths of Harvard engineering? Because when we talk about engineering schools, we might think about MIT, Caltech, CMU, Stanford. But how do you envision the uniqueness and strengths of Harvard engineering?
So engineering is very big. So I just speak of applied math or the theoretical side of WE. So I think compared to MIT or Stanford or Michigan or Bonner-Champaign, we're much smaller in terms of the number of faculty members, but there are indeed strengths in the number of the faculty that we have. And another strength that I can see, I personally experience, is that there is a much larger and very vibrant intellectual community across campus. As I said several times, I have a lot of collaborators in the stat department and math department and CMSA. So I feel I'm in a very happy community, and people are friendly, and we work on similar problems, we can talk to each other. So these are, I think, some of the strengths of Harvard engineering.
Yeah, if I can follow up on that, I mean, I'll speak more about computer science in this particular case. MIT down the road has an amazing, huge department of computer science, and we are relatively tiny in comparison. And still, when you can think about computing and society, it's Harvard that sort of took the lead on this. So And this has been sort of long-running concern of Harvard. I mean, happened as early as in the early 90s, I think, that we started to think about how does computing interact with society and what will society look like due to the computing infrastructure. It's a different class of concerns, and we created many changes over here. Harvard is one place where ethics is deeply embedded into a computing curriculum. We have strong interactions with law and policy and so on. We have courses that we co-teach with the law school. We have courses on privacy, which are taught in conjunction with other departments. There's public health connections, business school connections. These are all a lot of different connections that happen here because we are a smaller group and we are forced to look outside.
I think we have time for one last question.
Hi again. Every faculty tend to have a different requirement for graduation, and some faculty tend to look at publications, some faculty look at what you have learned in a sense, but what do you guys look at when a student is ready to graduate? What are the sort of things you look into?
This. Okay, so for me, I mean, okay, I can be serious or I can joke. I used to joke that my advisor allowed me to graduate when he realized that I knew how to find him at any time of the day, and now it was just too much of a pain to have me around. I think we basically look for the setting where the student is ready to launch themselves, is coming less and less to you for advice. And over time, I mean, I think quite often it even happens in the third year of a student, and then you still have them stick around for another couple of years. But at some point, you see that you're holding them back from becoming even stronger. So at that stage, you certainly have to ask them to graduate. Some students actually like being graduate students. They, some people are itchy. They want to get out, and they say, "Okay, look, can I graduate today?" And say, "No. This is your first year. You're not ready." And others come back and they say that, "Look, I want to. I'm happy here. Why do you need me to go? I'm even funding myself. I'm even doing this. Why do you need me to leave? I'm doing great research." If they're ready, I mean, if they're just holding themselves back because of some fear of the unknown, that's when we try to sort of say, look, you really need to get out and get out.
There's also an issue of timing. So if you're fourth year, fifth year, and then you have already accumulated enough work, they're ready to graduate, and then depending on the job market, right? If there's a great opportunity, then then you should graduate. If you want to take one more additional year, to have a better prospect of finding a more ideal position, then all these things can be discussed with your advisor.
Yeah, and I think again that the focus is on what is a good place for you to live. It's not much about my interest in keeping you or having you go. It's really what constitutes a good set of results for your PhD, and that might depend on what you want to do next, right? So if you want to go for a postdoc, I might tell you, listen, I think you might need a few, one or two more papers to actually have a chance at a successful, next steps of your careers. If you want to go to industry, those goals might be different. It depends a little bit on what you want to do next. So again, that should be a discussion with your PI. You want to make sure that they know what are your goals, and they're going to advise you on what is a good place to say, okay, it's time, we go on.
Yeah, I'm going to, since I'm here with a microphone, echo the theme of that, which I think we try to advise all of our students. Don't think of the PhD as an end in itself. It is a means to furthering where you go next after the PhD. So that the point of it is to set you up for what comes next. I'm going to ask one more question, but first of all, I'm going to say thank you all for your questions. You anticipated basically everything that we thought we might want to come out here. So I'm going to ask you all to close with what you now know that you wish you had known but didn't when you started grad school.
I will start. Again, I made a lot of mistakes when I was in grad school. One of the mistakes was that I tended to work a lot at home. I do theoretical work. I only need a computer with internet access. I need a piece of paper and then I can work. And my advisor told me that as long as I'm making progress, he didn't care where I worked. But I realized later on that what I miss out are a lot of networking opportunities. And because if you work in office, you get to know other students, not students in your group, but other students from other areas. And then these will be great because in many cases, the best research idea came from your conversation with other people, not from reading papers. And also by knowing more people, you have a larger network to get moral or moral support, because PhD program can be long and sometimes there's a hard process. So we want to fully benefit from getting to know more people. So as a corollary to what I was just saying, I would highly recommend you to come to the office and work in person. So get to know other people.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that is very close to what you just said, in the sense that in my case, I had to be in the lab, but I spent so many hours in my lab trying to achieve what I wanted to. And I think this goes back to something I was mentioning before. I wish I put more effort into not just focusing on my specific goals and trying to, there were days where I was like, I need to get this done. And I would stay in the lab until that was done. But also to understand more of where my research was within a broader context and understanding new questions and where the field was in general. I was very focused on the small thing that I was doing. And I think, as you said, the PhD is one step towards something that comes after, but it's a few years of your life. So I think you really want those years to be as full and beautiful as possible. So I think you really want to have a great research experience, but I think when you choose your school, also try to find a place where you feel like you could enjoy life for the next, 5-6 years that you have. Because it's a lot of time. So you don't want to be miserable for the next 6 years. You really want to, find a place where you can do research and, be in a community and learn, as happy as a place as you can find.
Yeah. Also, sort of echoing you and Julia there, I think it's very, the one aspect of the network and the society is that I think you should really evaluate very carefully is your peer group. And since John phrased the question in terms of what do you regret, what do you know now that you didn't know then, in my G1 year as a graduate student, a G5 student came to me and said, what do you do? Okay, and you should come by and talk to me anytime. I'm completely available. And I just blew him away saying, I sort of mentally ignored all this saying, why should I work with another graduate student? I want to work with my advisors. Big mistake. Never do this. This, working with other graduate students, if you have the opportunity, if it fits your research style, this is where you learn the most. You're going to spend 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week with your advisor, 4 hours a week with your postdoctoral mentors. You're going to spend 40 hours a week with your other graduate students. Learn from them, teach them. This is the most valuable part of your being here.
Excellent. So before we formally thank our panel, program note, the next thing is a tour of the building led by current students. So they will meet you right outside this room. And with that, let's thank this excellent panel.
coming. There's another one. Oh, this is my extra. If there is one that got lost.
Oh, it's here. Did you lose another one?
Oh no, that's
Okay.
no. I haven't.
We've been to announce it.
Right.
Maybe. I can bring it.
You're done.
We're done. I know. Somebody else.
Little Merc.
Yes.
Try this over here.
What's the official date of matriculation for an incoming PhD student?
I think it's the first day of classes.
So that's the date they officially matriculate, or is it like